that was that's brought us through to Creepy Worlds.
Well, that was 59. It's sort of 58 stroke 59.
Early 59.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now then, Alan, I noticed that on Creepy Worlds #1,
yes.
my copy of Creepy Worlds #1,
yes,
it has a big yellow Comic Code Authority
yes.
stamp on it.
Yes, yes.
But didn't seem to appear after that.
No, well, no, it didn't, because what transpired, the American publishers had sent me the black and white flongs, proof sheets, and they'd also sent me the litho for the cover, together with an actual cover, because I wanted to check the colours.
Yeah, do the colour matching, yeah.
And of course, this went back to the early 40s, to the mid 40s, I mean right through the 40s. And in America at that time, they had what was called the Comic Code Authority.
Well, it came in 1956, did the Comic Code Authority.
It was 56, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, then that was the reasoning, because in the 40s, some of the material that came into me, which actually I didn't use, but today would be laughable,
Yeah.
was quite outlandish.
Yeah, no, that's why they ended up
there
with
was
the
a lot of
yeah,
blood on the thunder going around.
Heads being chopped off. And,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Zombies.
So that is why. Anyway, so it must have been 55, 56. They sent me, yes. They would have sent me from the 40s and the 50s a selection,
yeah,
which I would have used. And on the 56 covers, it would have had the Comic Code Authority.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I didn't know much about the Comic Code Authority. I thought, fine, whatever, it's been approved. Excellent, jolly good. And I didn't give it another thought. I just printed the cover as was.
Yeah.
With that Comic Code Authority there.
Yeah.
And that was all fine. And it came out, and it went out, and that was all great. Until I had a letter. And the letter was from New York, or from America. It was New York, I think. And it was a very nice letter. It just stated, on very official paper, Comic Code Authority paper and so on, basically to say that you're infringing on the use of our copyright,
right?
Because we promote or are in charge of authorizing the usage in America, and it does not reach the UK.
Yeah.
And would you therefore immediately discontinue its use? Which I thought, fine, okay, yes, no problem. Back went the letter, discontinuing immediately, so sorry, and there was no problem, everything was fine. But then I had this little square
at
the top. And I therefore thought, okay, we've got to put something in there. Well, I could have coloured it in, but I thought, no. Which actually was a good thought. I'm pleased I thought of this, because I thought, right, look, approved comic are also my initials, Alan Class.
Yes.
So it all fitted in beautifully. You've got the AC, which is Alan Class.
Yeah.
And around on the ring, you've got approved comic.
Indeed, yeah.
So I killed two
and
birds with...
who was it approved by? It was approved by you?
I approved it. But actually, having said I approved it, I was getting all approved material anyway.
Yes, you were, yeah.
So it was all fine,
Yeah.
yes. But that was very interesting. But that answers why it only came out in 1 or 2 issues. It was.
Well, I've only seen it on Creepy Worlds 1. Because Creepy Worlds 2.
It wasn't on Secrets 1. I'm not sure.
I don't think so, because it's not on Creepy Worlds 2, which I presume came out
Yeah.
before Secrets 1. Creepy Worlds 2.
I think it would be on. It's not on Creepy 2.
No.
Oh, well, then I really must have taken a lot of trouble because I'll tell you why. The machine, the printing machine, basically was an enormous machine, and you've seen the printing plates, and it printed 4 covers at a time.
Right.
In other words, it would print 4 black plates, 4 red plates, 4 yellow plates each time.
Each press.
And I actually got round the printer. I said, well, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what I'm going to sell, whether I'm going to sell half a dozen or whatever. So I can't really afford to do more than 2 at a time. So they said, right, to help you, and they were great. I'll tell you who it was in a minute. They were great. They said, we will just put on 2, but therefore you've got to do Creepy Worlds number 1 with Creepy Worlds number 2.
Oh, right, okay.
To get it going. So when all this developed, they must have already have started, or Creepy World number 1.
Yeah.
Something must have happened, and I phoned them probably in great haste, and also probably feeling pretty queasy, and saying, look, you've got to help me. We can't do Approve of Comic, the little note at the top of Creepy 2. Yes, okay, so that was how, quite possibly, we got the comic code removed from Creepy World 2.
Yeah.
They probably stopped the machine in the middle of everything and took it away, but it was too late to stop 1.
Interesting. So,
Or
I mean, one of the reasons, because I think I mentioned before,
Yes.
that Creepy Worlds 2 is a lot harder to find than 1. I wonder
yes,
if you got the notice about 1,
Yes.
and then they might have been in the issues of 2. Maybe they got it in the middle,
yes, and they had to start it again.
and they then changed it, and the ones with the Comic Code Authority didn't get released, and you got a smaller print. I don't know.
Anything is it is possible. I'm afraid it's 66 years ago.
Well, as I was saying to you, I was trying to remember back to what I was doing when I was 20, and I was struggling. So
66 years ago, I can't really remember. I remember the problem, and I remember the letter, and I remember the response, and I know what I did. But no, but it is possible. But anyway, okay.
So who were your printers? Your own printers?
The printers were a company in Oadby in
Oh,
Leicester
yes, yeah.
called Jensen Book Company.
Right, yes. Did they do work for Thorpe and Porter as well?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they did.
Okay.
I don't think they did. They were a small printing works. I remember the name of the manager in charge, who was a very nice chap called Sam Malpas. And Sam and I got on very well together. Well, he had to, because I didn't know what I was doing. And he was advising me accordingly, which was...
And did you go up to...
Yeah, I popped up there, but he came, every month or every couple of months he was down, yes, because I gave him the material and we went through it and everything else. And then I drove him mad with print runs. I was saying, Sam, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell 5,000 or 8,000 or 6,000. How far have you got in the printing? And he said, well, I've done all the covers. Oh, I said, all right, okay. And he said, but you can cut back a little bit next time. Yes, and that's how we went on. But he was terrific. And then we went to 2. We came in with Secrets of the Unknown.
Right, so that came in, what's, about a year later?
About a year later. Yes. And then we built up to, no it didn't, I think it went from 2 to 3,
Yeah.
and 3 to 4. So we did Creepy Secrets, Sinister,
Yeah.
Sinister Tales, and Suspense Stories.
Yep.
And when I was doing 4 a month, I thought, my God, this is marvellous, you know. And they were selling.
Yep.
People were interested
Yep.
in space and science fiction and out of this world. And then I think but we're going a little ahead. I came out with a 5th, which was Astounding Stories, and then there was Uncanny Tales.
Yeah, those were your main titles.
Those were my main 6 titles.
Yeah.
And then, when those 6 were out, I then went back because I found that 6 was pushing it a bit, but I wanted to keep the 6 titles going, so I did some of them on bi-monthly basis,
Right, okay.
which is why the numbers
Go out a bit.
nobody
add up.
understands or knows, including me, what the hell is going on.
So you would just occasionally decide this month I'm just going to do 4.
I would do 4, but I would revolve them round.
Yeah,
There was a
okay.
method somewhere, but God knows what it was. But then, on top of that, I was doing all this basically by myself.
Yeah, so you were basically a one-man band. Were you still in the shop in
Yes,
the back of the
yes, I was. I was there for quite a long time, some years. It was a little shop in a street called Lymington Road, and I'll know it was next door to a little cafe.
Okay.
And I knew the chap well, and he used to send me in lunch, which was a godsend. I never wanted to move from that shop. It was so useful.
Was it more expensive than
It was more than 1 1/9.
Was it?
Yeah, I think by then it was half a crown. Or
Oh my
something.
goodness.
Yeah, things had gone mad. But anyway, I was there, and I would be getting in magazines. The magazines would
Still
come
going.
in to me.
Yep.
Yeah, they would be coming in, and I remember doing all the movie magazines.
So they all come into this shop. Did he have a garage or a?
No, but it was shop with a fair space,
Yeah.
with a big room at the back.
Okay.
Um,
So you just unload yourself.
and they'd all be unloaded. I was very methodical. They all had to go in certain parts and
Right.
certain places.
Yeah.
And I would get in these bales of magazines and all these parcels of comics, and then I'd have to pack them all up.
So were they strapped when they were arrived?
The magazines
Yeah.
were in bales in 50s,
Yeah.
and they were tied in 50s,
Yeah.
yes. The comics would come in in parcels, not tied,
Right.
in basically hundreds, except I then asked the printers if they would do some parcels of 50s as well, because I was sending them out in 50s, in 60s, in 80s, in whatever. Actually, the only time that I would have help would be when the bales of magazines and comics were coming in, and then I would contact the local job centre
Yeah.
and ask if they could kindly send me in one or two chaps for the
To do
day
that
to give me
lifting.
a help
Yeah.
to get them in.
Sure.
And actually they came to know me very well, and I came on the phone, they said, oh, you'd like a couple of, yes, they're only too happy to help you, yes.
Yeah, so you get two chaps for half a day.
For
perhaps.
half a day, yes, or a day,
Yeah.
yes. But the rest, I would probably, for the London people, I'd probably load my car
And drive them around.
and drive them round, and that would take me as far afield as Elephant and Castle, Camberwell, South East London, all over the place, to about 8-10 deliveries. But the rest was sent out by what was then known as British Road Services,
Right, yes.
which was a company
Yeah.
going throughout the UK,
Yeah.
and I would send them out through them, having packed and labelled and tied. Oh, it went on and on.
And how did you get into British Road Services? Were they...
Right. When I was in Lymington Road, it was actually amazing because on the other side of the road at that time, British Road Services, or BRS as they were called, had an enormous depot. It was quite amazing. And I used to walk them over the road. I used to be very friendly with them. They used to see me coming and give me a hand.
So that was one of your distribution techniques,
that
was
was
to get
terrific.
a barrow and
Exactly that. But then they moved, and that became. But they had lorries going round, and they would do a collection.
they'd pick up with them.
Yeah, they would do a collection. Yes, and so that handled that. And then I thought to myself, this was after a few years, I thought, well, I would like to do a few more comics. Maybe I'll try some one-shots.
Right, yeah.
So we went into the one-shot field,
Right.
where we started amazing stories.
Yes.
Tales of the supernatural.
Yes. Eerie, I've got an eerie.
Eerie, yes. I mean, I forget. And we did one-shots of those, which went very well. And then I thought, well, I'll be very clever. I'm going to do a special comic for the ladies.
Right.
Which I think was called Uncensored Love or Secret Confessions.
Oh, I've never found one of those.
Well, I'm not surprised because I did them,
Yeah.
and I think I was hard put to sell 5 copies. I think when they came out, I may have sent them out,
Right. But they came back.
but the problem, they were like a bouncing ball, and back they came. Nobody wanted them. I don't think that there were any women walking around buying a car. I don't know what happened, but I know.
Because there were romance magazines around at the time.
Well, that's what led me. You see,
Yeah.
romance magazines I was doing,
Maybe it was your
and they
distributor.
were selling well.
Yeah, maybe your distributors just didn't have the right customers.
I don't know. I don't think the young ladies were interested in romance comics. They like magazines but not comics. And then of course I tried Just Dennis,
Oh yes, yeah.
which was known as Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, the American
So,
Dennis the Menace, yeah.
Well, they had an office in England, and it was down in the city. And off I went to that office, and I remember seeing them, and I said, look, I've got all these comics, and I want to do a Just Dennis comic. And again, it was going to be a shilling, and with all these pages. And they said, fine, you can do it, but you can't use the title Dennis the Menace.
Mm-hmm.
because we may want to do that ourselves or whatever. So I said, fine, can I call it Just Dennis? I mean, I didn't just say it like that, I gave it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
And came up with Just Dennis. And they said yes. So out we came with Just Dennis, which I forget how many issues it did, but it wasn't many.
No, I've never seen that either.
It wasn't many. It was just a few issues, and unfortunately,
Didn't work.
Dennis wasn't in demand in
No,
England.
no.
So,
Well, he was competing with English Dennis the Menace at the time, wouldn't he? Have
Yes.
been in the 60s, because Dennis the Menace was in the.
yeah,
Was it the Beano?
they were doing, yes. So that also fell by the wayside, unfortunately. But there were a variety of others. And then I was approached by Thorpe and Porter,
Mm-hmm.
but this was going further forward. By then, I'd established a distribution
Yeah.
for my
So this
comics.
was later in the 1960s.
Exactly. And I'd become friendly with a lot of distributors, and we were working together. They were taking the best they could. I'd sorted out what was happening to comics that were left over.
Did they return them to you? Did
Yeah, yes. I mean, that was a story because by then I had W.H. Smith taking the comics, and also John Menges.
Mm-hmm.
They were also taking
Players,
comics, and we got on very well. They were very, very good, excellent. They helped, and they did well. And the problem was, not just with them, with all the distributors, that everything was basically on sale of return.
Mm-hmm.
But by then I knew where I was. But nevertheless, sale of return meant that the top of the front cover could be cut off,
Yes.
the heading,
Yeah.
and could be stapled together, and you would get back 50 comics in a parcel that size.
Yeah, just the top cover.
Just the cover, stapled. And I said, no way. I'll take back the copies, but I've got to have the
Want the
copies.
full thing back.
Of the whole thing back. And it's got to be in a satisfactory, clean
So, I mean,
state.
presumably though, if they were picking up from you the new issues, they could drop off the old ones, the return ones, on the same vehicle.
Well, no, because what was going round the country was BRS,
Yeah,
which was
okay.
British
Yeah,
Road Parcels,
yeah.
and they would come back as parcels.
Right, okay.
So that it would be costing them money to send them back to me,
Right.
which I'm not sure how we dealt with. I'm not sure if I paid something towards that. I don't remember that, but I probably did. But in London, or the London area, yes, at least when I took their new issues,
You'd bring the old
I
ones
could
back.
bring
Yeah.
the old unsolds back. But I did insist that they were kept in mint condition.
Yeah.
And that was how, because otherwise, yes, you're right, it was all sale of return, and you get back the top of the front copy, which wouldn't have been helpful. You wouldn't have bought that, would you?
No, I
Even for
wouldn't.
6 months, no. So that's how we overcame that, and we sold. I built up a stock because I then knew that when the summer months came round, and we call summer months May, June, July, August,
Yep.
September.
Yeah.
When those months came round, your holiday resorts areas such as Blackpool, Brighton, Margate, wherever.
Yeah. Bridlington.
Bridlington, yes, most certainly.
Mr. Haddock was.
Oh, yes. Wherever resorts, summer resorts opened, the parents came with their children, and you've got the beach, and you want to keep the children occupied and quiet, which you can with sandpies and also with the sea, but it helps to have reading material.
Well, yes, because the English seaside often has the problem of rain.
Yes, exactly, yes. So a comic became very useful. So I used to get all the summer resorts phoning me up, or I would be in touch with them, and they would say, yes, we would like so many. How many issues have you got?
Yeah.
And they only had numbers on them. They weren't dated, so they
no.
weren't old.
No, they didn't know.
They
Because
were
those
just
in good
numbered.
condition, yeah.
And I would say, right, well, I've got maybe 20 issues. Fine, send us 20 of each, 50 of each, 100, depending.
Yeah.
And that meant that your stock was saleable.
Yeah.
And that's how I kept it going.
Well, that's canny business, I think.
Well, it kept me going,
Yeah.
and it enabled it to keep going for 30 years.
Well, exactly.
So, because if the stock would have been building up, it wouldn't have lasted 5 years. So there we are. It was okay. Yes.
Right.
So,
Thorpe and Porter talk to you.
Thorpe and Porter, thank you. Thorpe and Porter one day phoned me up, and they said, look, we'd like to have a meeting. So I said, fine. And off I trot to their offices, and they were an enormous company.
Big, yeah.
They were an enormous
Big printing company.
They had not only printing, they
Their
had their
distribution.
own distribution.
Right.
With probably 100 or more vans on the road.
Wow, I didn't realise they were that big.
They were big, and they imported a lot of merchandise, not just magazines and whatever, but other things as well for news agents and so on. And they were a very big, very good company. And I remember sitting down, and a very nice gentleman, and he said to me, look, Alan, you've got these comics. We'd like to do the distribution for you. And I said, oh, well, you know, we can do very well. So I said yes, and I wasn't very old, and I wasn't all that, even then, all that canny, but what I did know, because we're talking a few years down the line, was that I built up an interesting group of comics where I was still forming my own distribution, but which was enabling me to do a satisfactory distribution, and it was growing. So I said, look, I'm terribly sorry, but I wouldn't be interested. You can have comics for distribution, but I can't stop distributing through the companies that I already distribute through. In any case, they've supported me, they've given me their full support over the years, and it's not something that I would consider. So they did understand, they were very understandable, or understanding, and I said, but look, there's nothing to stop me actually publishing 2 other comics, different titles, which your company can have the distribution on. And that's how Out of This World and Weird Planets.
Now, when you did those for Thorpe and Porter, did they have the Thorpe and Porter logo on, or your logo on?
My logo. Thorpe and Porter go back well before me.
Yeah.
When they were doing their own comic. Well, they weren't doing their own comics. They were doing their own odd comic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was only very few that they did well before me.
Right.
And they didn't want to go back into doing that.
Right.
Which
So they
is
stopped
why
that. Yeah. Okay.
they stopped, and then they came when later on they came to me.
Right. So you did these two titles.
So then-
with the Alan Class logo,
I did the two titles
but for them, not for your regular distribution.
Exactly. It
Right.
was, and they kept them going for about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is why you find that you have Out of This World and Weird Planets in like 2 different lots,
Yeah.
even today, when you find them, because when after a couple of years Thorpe and Porter stopped Out of This World and Weird Planets, they had enough on their
Yeah,
plate, or
yeah, yeah.
they'd stopped,
Yeah.
whatever. I then continued for myself Out of This World
With your normal distribution.
with my normal distribution, yes,
Yeah.
doing them bi-monthly or whatever,
Yeah.
which is why, and I carried on, I think for 10 or 12 issues, I forget now, for each of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were sort of science fiction type.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So we kept them going.
Right.